All right. Thank you, Nicola. It's nice to be here with you all virtually, coming live from my den. I see a couple familiar faces out there. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. And give me just a sec. All right. And yeah, guys, so like Nicholas said, feel free to put questions into the chat, because otherwise it's just me kind of sitting here talking to myself, and it's kind of strange for me. But anyway, my name is Jay Futterman. I'm a solar ambassador with Illinois Solar Education Association. I've been with this group for about 4 years and do this talk and kind of do whatever I can to advance the cause of solar energy in Illinois and across the country. So we'll be focusing kind of on how you can power your home with the sun today. I'll tell my story. We'll talk about the process and answer any questions that you might have. I don't work in the solar industry. I don't have a background in that. I can give you just the information I know as someone who's a homeowner and has gone through this process myself. So real quick, a little bit about Illinois Solar Education Association. So we're a nonprofit organization that was founded in 1975 with the goal of educating and advocating for the widespread application of solar and renewable energy in Illinois. So we have members that are in the business community as well as individuals. And we do a lot of talks like this, as well as we have an annual solar home tour where you can check out houses across Illinois in the past, in real life. And this past year, we did it virtually. And that takes place in September. All right, so 2020, by almost any measure, was a bad year. It was tied for the hottest year on record. And, you know, we had record wildfires, record hurricanes. Climate change is really starting to bear on us. And it's more clear than ever, this isn't something that's out in the future. It's happening already now. And it's costly. You know, we had, again, record number of billion-dollar plus weather disasters this past year. So, you know, it's not about polar bears. It's about things that impact our pocketbooks and our lives here. And the consensus is that we have about 10 years to half our emissions if we're going to avoid the worst that's yet to come. So that's motivating for me. And, you know, I've got 2 kids, and in 10 years, they're going to be either heading off to college or in high school thinking about their future. And, you know, the question I'm going to have at that point is, well, have we succeeded in avoiding the worst, or have we failed our next generation? And we have the tools to succeed. And solar is a big part of it. And here's the great thing. Solar is actually the cheapest way to get electricity in Illinois, beyond its environmental impact. So even if all that stuff doesn't faze you, but you just like to save money on your utility bills, solar is still the right way to go for you. And again, people come to this from all different perspectives. Again, for myself, environmental concerns are the most important, but there's a lot of other advantages. It improves public health. So if you look at areas that surround coal plants, there's a lot more chronic health issues that come with those kinds of emissions. The clean energy sector has recently been the fastest growing employment sector in the United States. This is really the field that's going to be generating jobs for the next decades to come. As I mentioned, it saves money. So there's an investment that you can make up front, but it pays off. My electricity bills have been zero for a long time now. It increases your home's value. And solar energy really is an inexhaustible energy supply. And there's a lot of security that comes with that. So where are we in Illinois right now? Well, as you can see, solar is still just a very tiny sliver of our overall energy mix. I think this pie chart is actually from 2019. And since that time, coal has gone down a bit and solar has gone up and wind has gone up. Um, as of the third quarter in 2020, there was 374 megawatts of solar installed in Illinois. That's more than double what was there in 2019. So we're growing rapidly, and there's a state law, Future Energy Jobs Act, that has a goal of 25% of the electricity used in the state to come from renewables by the year 2025. And the way that we're making electricity is changing. So we're shifting from a centralized system where there's large power plants under centralized control to a smarter, more distributed form of energy generation with wind, with solar, with microgrids. And it's a very exciting change to see. So there's a lot of myths that come with when we talk about solar energy. So we'll go through some of those now. I'll do my best to bust some of them now, and we'll bust some of them later. So common myths: you can't sell the excess energy you produce. That should actually say can't, but you actually can. You do sell the excess energy you produce. That's a process called net metering, and we'll go into that in a lot of detail a little bit later on. What about sun? You know, we don't get enough sun here. It's cold. Solar panels can't withstand our weather. We actually do get enough sun. I'll show you a map in a couple slides. You know, solar panels are tough. They're made to be tough. They could take hailstones. They can take hurricanes. In areas where hurricanes have knocked out the power, it's usually the transmission lines that go down rather than destroying the solar panels. It's too expensive. Well, if you asked me 10 years ago, I would have said yes, but we're at the point now where solar costs have come down so much that it is the economically advantageous thing to do. Harder to sell my house. Well, data does not support that. And you can imagine if you're a home buyer looking at two identical houses, one of which has essentially no electric bill and has a little shiny thing on the roof that requires no maintenance. I know that's the one I would choose. What about they'll cause problems with the roof? It'll leak, deteriorate, or collapse. You know, these are not new systems. Solar has been out in the market, and the racking system, which is what attaches the panels to the roof, these are well designed, well vetted. As long as you're going with a qualified installer, this really is not a problem. You have to have a south-facing roof. Well, southern exposure is best. On my house, I have them on the east and west side. And like I said, it works fine. I have no electric bill. So north is the one roof you wouldn't want to generally put the solar panels, though. And installing solar, it'll increase my property taxes. Well, there's actually a state statute that says it is not able to increase your property taxes. So in Illinois, that's not an issue. All right. So I mentioned, you know, are we too far north? Do we not get enough sun? Well, for a long time, Germany was the world's leader in solar. And if you look at the actual solar resource, the amount of sunshine that's there, it's equivalent to Alaska. And it was working in Germany, and here we are in Illinois in the Midwest, and our solar resource is more similar to Spain. You know, we're not the same as Southern California or Arizona, but again, it works just fine here. All right, so let's talk about how the solar system actually works, right? So we have the sun. The sun shines down on the photovoltaic array, or PV array, which is mounted on the roof. Through the magic of solar energy and the photoelectric effect, the sunshine causes electrons to start circulating around in such a way that produces electricity. The electricity that these generate is DC, or direct current. And what we use in our house is all AC current. So the DC energy goes into an inverter, which is either a separate box outside the house or in the basement or on the back of the panels themselves, where that DC energy gets converted to AC energy, where then it goes into your service panel. And then you use it in your house, just like you use the regular electricity from the power plant. As a homeowner, when I'm using my solar energy, there's absolutely no difference in the way my appliances or lights function. You can't tell one way or another. Now, if you're making more electricity than you're using, the excess gets fed out onto the grid through the electric meter. And the electric meter keeps track of which way the electricity is going. So at night, when I'm not producing electricity, it goes in from the grid into my meter, into my service panel, into my house. But during the day when I am producing excess energy, it goes the opposite way. And the meter keeps track of how much energy is going in each direction through a process called net metering. So again, how does net metering work? The solar rooftop converts sunlight into electricity. The energy goes to your home where you use it. The excess goes back to the grid. The surplus that is produced is credited to your utility account. And here's an example of someone who has solar. And this is what the bill would typically look like. So you have a line item for kWh from the grid. That's kilowatt hours. That's a measure of electricity. So there's a line for from the grid, and then there's a line that's to the grid. So in this particular month, this individual fed 600 kilowatt hours to the grid and took 420 from the grid. Cloudy days, nighttime. So what this resulted in was an excess generation of 180 kilowatt hours for that month. And that total gets rolled over from month to month. So in the springtime or summertime, when it's really sunny, I produce a lot of excess energy. And then in the wintertime, when it's seldom sunny and there's maybe snow on the roof, I'm not making any electricity, but I'm able to draw down from that account. Depending on how you bill, you will still have to pay about $15 a month to stay connected to the grid. And that's, that's worthwhile because it's not sunny all the time, and it's good to have the grid there on those days when you're not making your own electricity. All right, so net metering is something that we have here that helps solar make economic sense. Then there's solar incentives that come from the state and from the federal government. So the federal government has a tax credit, which actually just got extended for the next couple of years. So the total cost of the solar installation, you submit that with your federal taxes, and you'll get a credit of 26% of that total cost. So that's not a deduction, that's a dollar for dollar credit that you get back. It starts to step down now after 2022, but basically about a quarter of the upfront cost that you have with your solar install comes back to you as a tax credit. Now that does assume that you have some tax liability, so that's an important consideration. But the federal is pretty straightforward. The state incentives is a little bit different. We have something called a solar renewable energy credit. And in recent times, that would cover about 20 to 30% of the total installed cost of the solar project. Now, what is a renewable energy credit? Well, it's basically a way of monetizing the environmental benefits of solar generation. Renewable energy credit is equivalent to 1 megawatt hour of energy produced. And so basically the way that it works, the state, like I indicated before, has a goal of getting us to 25% renewable energy by 2025. And one of the ways they incentivize this is through these renewable energy credits. It gives an extra value to energy produced from a renewable source. So as a homeowner, you install your system, the system produces a certain amount of megawatt hours per year, and the Illinois Power Agency purchases these RECs essentially from you for the utilities to say that our grid is getting cleaner as we go. Typical homeowner system will receive the 15 years worth of production credits up front. So this is in addition to your net metering and in addition to your federal tax credits. So with all this stuff together, it really drops the cost of going solar. and enables it to actually save you significant money in the long run. So
yes, you're just about to go over that. We had a question about RECs and whether they are running out, and I see that you were about to cover that, so I will let you.
That was a great segue. Thank you very much. So as of January, we in Illinois basically have run out of the money that was allotted for the renewable energy credits. So we have these things called adjustable block. I'm blanking on the P, Nicola, program, adjustable block program, right? So you're either in Group A, which is generally Ameren's territory, or Group B, which is ComEd's territory. And depending on the size of your project and how early you get in, the renewable energy credits have a different value. And essentially all these blocks have just, all the money's been spent. So the money will hopefully be replenished soon, but we're kind of waiting for the state government to take some action on that. So this is something that we at ISEA have been kind of pushing for a while. We saw this, what we call the solar cliff looming, and unfortunately, because of COVID and everything else going on in the state, we've unfortunately reached the cliff. But come spring session, we're very confident that these blocks are going to get filled up again. So the state credits should be there. They're just not there at this exact moment. I hope that makes sense. Any other questions on the block program, state renewable energy credits?
Yes. Well, first of all, I wanted to mention the bill that ISEA is working on to help get money back for RECs. It's called Path to 100, and I'm putting a link in the chat box so you can see it for yourself and tell your senators and representatives about it. And then Lynn would like to know, if blocks open up, can you still get them? I will say that there is a waiting list at the moment for when the blocks do open up. So you can get on that waiting list and be first in line for when they do open up. I don't know if Jay has more to say on that.
No, I don't really.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, I would just, echo what you just said, Nicola. Call your state legislators, tell them that, clean energy is important to you, that you're interested in going solar, but you're concerned about the availability of the state renewable energy credits. And, it's important for jobs, it's important for our climate, for clean air, for Illinois businesses. So they need to hear from their constituents so they know it's important.
And then Lynn clarified a little bit. Do you get on the wait list when your system is installed or when you apply? And I'm not really sure about that, Lynn. My instinct is when you apply, but we'll have to look into that for you.
Okay. All right. So that's some background of how solar works in Illinois. So let's talk about how to get it on your own house, right? So first steps. So think about your roof. Which way is it pitched? How much life is left in it? If your roof is, kind of at the end of its life, it doesn't really make sense to install solar on it. You may want to do the new roof a little early and install solar at the same time in that case. Think about how long you're going to be in your house. If you're thinking of moving in the next couple of years, it may not be an investment that you want to make right now, although it does increase the value of your home, certainly. Understand your energy consumption. So think about, what in your house is using energy, how much it's using, how much energy you're using throughout the course of the year, and think of ways to use less, because the cheapest solar panel is the one that you don't need to install. So whatever you could do to reduce your energy use is going to go a long way. So how do we make our homes more efficient? Well, ComEd has a program. They'll come in and do a free home energy assessment for you. Simple things like changing out your light bulbs so they're all LED bulbs, looking at any potential air leaks, so caulking and insulation, looking at doors and windows. Any appliances you have, look for Energy Star appliances. Things as simple as just turning things off when you leave the room can help out. And a smart thermostat can save your money on electricity for air conditioning and also natural gas for heating. Another thing to consider is electric cars. So I'm a big electric car fan. I've got a Chevy Bolt. It's a all electric, no tailpipe, fun car. But if you're charging that car from the usual grid, it's in a sense a coal and nuclear powered car. But if you can pair that with solar panels on your roof, then you're driving on sunshine. So once you've kind of thought about what's going on with your house, what are the next steps? Well, gather some quotes, and this can be done remotely. There's online resources that solar installers can use to look at your house. I encourage you all to go to illinoissolar.org. That's our website. There's a tab there where you can find a professional. And I'd encourage you to have at least 3 different companies assess your house and give you quotes. You want to decide how big of a system you want to make. If you have roof space where it makes sense and you want to do all of your energy from the sun, that's fantastic. If you only have enough roof space or you want to put in enough money to only do half of your energy, that's great too. Every little bit helps. Think about if you're going to have an electric car. I in retrospect, should have done that, but that's going to increase your electricity use. And then make sure you have a good understanding of the finances that we went through. So the tax credits, the net metering, the renewable energy credits, and Illinois Solar Energy Association website has a lot of great resources on that as well. And when you're getting the different quotes, a useful way of comparing them is just the cost per watt of the installed solar. Different companies are going to make different assumptions about what electricity prices will do in the future and incentives and that sort of thing. So a good apples to apples comparison is to look at the cost per watt rather than say, how much money you would save over the life of the system in any particular company's bid. All right, so I'll tell you the story about my installation. So my first installation was in April of 2016, just several months after seeing an ISEA presentation at my local library. So at that time, my average electricity use was about 400 kilowatt hours per month. We were a pretty efficient house already at that point. So we went with 16 panels from a company called Solar World. Each panel was rated at 285 watts. And based on their position on my roof, the system was going to make of a 4.275 kilowatt size. That was the size of our system. Now the upfront cost for that was $14,700, so not cheap. But we got 30% of it back as a federal tax credit in that year. So that knocked the price down to about $10,000. And then I got an additional $4,200 or so back as renewable energy credits. Back in 2016, they were being paid quarterly over a 5-year period rather than upfront as they are now. But what it essentially came down to is $6,000 investment for 25 to 30 years of my electricity. So I looked at it as it's a cost of an appliance that makes my electricity totally worthwhile. I'd spend more on electricity than I would on that appliance anyway. And like I said, for me, the climate imperative made it a no-brainer. And then I got an electric car in 2017, started buying electricity again and didn't like that. So I still had the west side of my roof available. So I installed another system there. This is a 3.3 kilowatt system. Now in just the 2.5 years since I installed my first system, the efficiency of the panels had jumped quite a bit. So I was able to get all that energy from only 9 panels, each one being rated at 360 watts. Upfront cost was similar, less the tax credit and less the SREX, came down to $6,500 for that. And that basically covers my gas for the next 30 years. And at this point, like I said, I'm basically powering my car and my house for $0 per month. So here's a couple pictures of the first installation. This is the workers up on the roof. You can see here they're installing the racking system onto the roof. There's flashing that goes around it. It goes into the roof rafters. I've been up in my attic many times. There's no leakage whatsoever. And then the individual panels themselves, they're about 2.5 feet by 5 feet in size. And they just kind of go up on this, they call it a sled. And a guy on the roof just clicks them into place on the rack. And this is what it looks like. This is my first system on the east side of the house, the 16 Solar World panels. And these are the 9 panels on the west side from Sun Power. The original system feeds into an inverter that's on the outside of the house, looks just like this. The newer system has inverters on the back of each panel. It's just a different design. You know, your solar installer will give you recommendations one way or another. For me, I just thought, well, one big box on the outside of my house is enough. I don't need to have another. In retrospect, it would have been a lot more financially advantageous to install these at the same time. But I wasn't in the market for an electric car back in 2016. So if you are thinking about it, and install it all at once, it's a more efficient way to go.
This actually.
So how's it working out so far?
Oh, sorry, is it okay if I interrupt?
Yeah, please.
Yeah, that sort of leads to a couple questions we have about differences in quotes. Lynn wants to know if you find many differences in quotes, and what should we ask to decipher what is good? And Tanya sort of answered that, but it's also good to get some more perspectives. That Tanya got quotes from 4 companies, and some were way higher, and she found that the lowest ones used a string inverter instead of microinverters. And so it sounds like you have both. You have one large inverter as well as microinverters on your 2 different installations. And so, excuse me. And so that led to another question from Lynn. Any preference on types or manufacturer of panels? And they've got a proposal with LG, I guess LG brand panels.
Yeah. For me, I think I had 3 or 4 different companies come out for the first round. And yeah, there was sort of a variety of price points. The one that was the cheapest, I just got a bad feeling from him. He didn't seem very professional. He had a pretty lousy website and was suspiciously cheap. I think an important thing to do is ask for references. If the company has served other people well, they'll probably serve you well. The company I went with was happy to give me references, and everyone I called had very glowing things to say about them. And they offered a variety of different panels. Some companies just, have their go-to panel, and others will give you a couple options. For me, I wanted the initial Solar World panels I got were made in Oregon. I had just recently moved from Oregon. I wanted to support American solar panel manufacturing. So they were more expensive than, comparable ones that were, made in China by a Chinese company. But I wanted to kind of stick with American manufacturing or at companies as much as I could have. In terms of, the technical parts about inverters and that sort of thing, I would really just defer to the installers. I'm not really expert in that. But hope that makes sense and answers your questions. Anything else, Nicola?
That is it for now.
Okay. So how is it working out? Well, from this is, well, anytime you get a solar system, there's going to be like an app that you can get, which is a lot of fun to look at and think about, wow, today I really made a lot of electricity, or this has been a rotten week for, for electricity. It's almost like you're a sun farmer. But obviously, I make a lot more electricity in the spring and summertime when the days are a lot longer. December, January, when the days are very short and cloudy, not making a whole lot. The snow will just sit on the panels sometimes for days on end, and I'll make very little electricity. But the beauty of net metering is, whatever excess I'm making in the more productive months carries me through the winter months. So even though there may be days where I make almost no electricity, it all is kind of factored in by my installer when they look at where in the world you live and in which way your panels are facing and what the pitch of your roof is. So, this 2020 was a pretty good year for me. I had some of my best months ever in 2020 with production. So this is great, right? I mean, why isn't everybody hopping on the solar bandwagon? Well, it's a sizable upfront amount of money. Maybe you live in a house like this with some trees all around and you'd have a shaded roof, or maybe you're a renter, or you live in multi-unit housing, or you don't own your roof. There's still options for you to go solar. So there's, low interest loans that are available, home equity loans. There's, green banks and green credit unions that specialize in solar loans. There's leasing options. There's companies that are out there that will put solar on your roof at no upfront cost to you. Essentially, you pay them for the electricity that's produced, and you're typically going to pay them about 20% less than what you would be buying the electricity from ComEd for. So this is great if you have a suitable roof, but you don't want to make that initial investment. Owning the panels, you're going to come out better long-term financially. But again, that's not for everybody. You just have to watch for escalators where, they'll increase what you pay every year. But solar leasing is a great option that really helps solar take off in California. And then another option, if you don't have a suitable roof, is community solar. So what is community solar? Well, it refers to larger scale solar facilities that are shared by individual community members. So essentially, a community solar project is built right now typically in rural Illinois, where there's a lot of land. If you live in the ComEd service area, then you can find a project that's being built somewhere in essentially northern Illinois. If you're in AMRED, then this will be in southern Illinois. And essentially, you buy a subscription, you buy a share of that solar project, and you basically pay monthly to the company that built the community solar project. And you're basically buying your electricity from them. Typically, again, this is going to be at a rate that's cheaper than what you would be paying the utility. So, even if you can't put it on your roof, you could still pay less money, grow solar in Illinois through community solar. And again, this doesn't have to be really anywhere near where you live. There's a lot of rules that govern this. This is different from what you may receive advertisements as, sort of like green energy plans, which are often just out of state. Green energy that you're buying renewable energy credits to support. This is all stuff that's being built in Illinois directly on our grid. So it's a great option. There's also another program called Illinois Solar for All. This also came out of the Future Energy Jobs Act, just like community solar. But this is specific for low-income or environmental justice communities. And it has a number of different parts to it, which include job training. There's a community solar component. There's a home solar component to it as well. And it funds a lot of different things, and you can find out more about that at illinoissfa.com. So that's pretty much what I got. So in summary, solar technology is here. We don't have to wait for it. It works. It will save you money, whether you put it on your roof, you lease it, you go with community solar. It will save you money compared to buying your energy from the utility. It is a key way to counter climate change. Tell your elected leaders that you support solar energy and that you need to see them take some action on this subject. So we have those renewable energy credits starting up soon. So now is the time. Take that next step. Be part of the solution. I invite you to check out the ISEA website. Again, we've got the Find a Professional section there. You can become a member of ISEA, support what we do, enter the Tesla raffle. And for more information, again, check our website out. You can email, find an installer. Encourage you all to really take that next step, and happy to answer any and all questions that I can.
Yeah, we've got a few more questions in already. Tanya wants to know how much you monitor the app to see how much energy is getting produced, and do you love sunny days even more and hate cloudy days even more?
Yeah, you know, I really followed the apps really closely, especially in the beginning because it was all new. Now I check on it a little bit less frequently, but on those really like long sunny days, I try and see if I've hit a record production. But again, you know, with the net metering, it doesn't really matter all that much because I know through the course of the year, it's all going to kind of balance out.
Awesome. Just apologies, my camera decided it's going to stop working. But Dylan wants to know more about green loans. Can 0% loan for the install? I'm afraid I don't really know a whole lot about that. Do you, Jay?
Yeah, I mean, I know of I don't know, I'll just preface this by saying these are not officially sanctioned by ISEA, but there is a clean energy credit union, which specializes in doing low interest solar loans. And there's also a online bank that's based out of Iowa called Green Penny. And they also specialize in solar financing for home solar. There's probably more out there, but those are the ones that I know offhand.
Great, thank you. Dylan also wants to know more about who might be installing Tesla. I assume that's the Tesla solar roof. I don't know anybody in particular, but I would check out ISEA's Find a Professional tab and then follow those websites to see who might be installing that equipment. Rich would like to know more about energy storage.
Sure, yeah, so it's a common topic. So yeah, for me, you know, I've thought about having batteries, but you know, the chances that the power in my area is going to go down for any extended period, of time that's really going to affect me is pretty low, I think. And batteries are still relatively expensive. It's something I've thought about. I know there's somebody on the webinar right now who does have batteries at home, but he runs a business out of his house and has servers and that sort of thing, and cannot allow the power to go out. So he had several Tesla Powerwall batteries. So it's kind of an individual thing. I've talked to some people who have like a electric pump for water. And you know, that's another situation where it might be really nice to always make sure you have backup energy. For my particular situation, it just isn't something that I need.
I do want to mention in the terms of energy storage that it is not incentivized by the state, but you install it at the same time as you install your solar, it will count as part of the 30% for your federal tax credit. But yeah, it is, as Jay said, not something that everybody necessarily needs at the moment. Tanya has a question. What about going solar was most surprising to you?
For me, just the fact that it works is most surprising. Like when I think about like how I could power my house with the sun, that fact just consistently blows me away, I would say. I think we're kind of so used to this mentality that we have to burn something to generate electricity. And our electricity has to come from some distant power plant. It's just a completely different mindset that you get in when you realize, well, no, we could do this on our rooftops. It works. All we need is light. So that's something I knew ahead of time, but once it really started working, I guess that consistently surprises me. Like when I drive my car, I'm like, all the all the forward motion of my car is essentially coming from the sun. So
awesome. Okay, I have a question from Andrew about structural soundness of his roof. It was in an email just before the webinar started, so let me pull that up. He has a 2-story home, and the joists from the peak are made with 2x4s and on 24-inch centers, and he's concerned that 14 panels might be too much for the roof to hold and be structurally sound. And he wants to know is there information that he can refer to on, I guess, how many panels are too many panels?
Yeah, so I could tell you for every city will perhaps have their own sort of building codes that affect, if they're going to give you the building permit or not. In my city, they had to have an engineer essentially sign off to say that the roof is structurally sound enough to support the extra weight. Now, the panels are not all that heavy by any means, but you want to make sure that things are going to be structurally sound. And 2x4s at 24 inches, I don't know. There's things that the installers may suggest that you do in terms of knee walls and collar ties and that sort of thing to stiffen the roof, but that's beyond my expertise.
Yeah, I think as somebody else says in the comments, you might want to get an opinion from an engineer. And oftentimes, when you get a quote from an installer, as Jay said, a lot of them are doing it online now, but before they actually, before you pick anyone, you can absolutely have them over to take a look at your roof and give you their recommendations for whether it needs to be reinforced or not. I don't see any other questions, Jay. If you have anything else you'd like to mention?
No, I think I've said what I got to say, but I thank you all very much for coming and listening to me, and hope you all give solar some serious thought and take the plunge. It's a great thing to do. You feel good about it every day.
Thanks so much, and thanks everybody for coming tonight, and thank you, Jay, for an excellent presentation. As I mentioned at the beginning, this is being recorded and I will be sending it out to all of you as soon as it processes. So thanks so much for your time and hope you have a great rest of your evening.
Good night.